Welcome to the Gen Gap, where time-tested leadership meets the demands of a new generation. I'm Maureen Fitzgerald, your host, bringing candid conversations with industry heavyweights. Together, we unpack how they are rethinking talent, culture, and leadership in the face of generational transition, AI disruption, and the rise of personal brand dominance. Today's guest is Kristian Cook, Global Head of Distribution at Liontrust Asset Management PLC. Kristian leads the firm's global sales strategy and client engagement across key markets, playing a central role in Liontrust's continued growth plans. Kristian joined Liontrust in 2018 as sales manager, quickly advancing to head of UK distribution before assuming his current global leadership role. His career spans several of the industry's most respected institutions, beginning at JP Morgan Asset Management as an analyst on the real estate desk and later transitioning into capital raising, serving as UK sales director at both JP Morgan and Franklin Templeton Investments. He has been instrumental in expanding market share and deepening strategic client relationships. In this episode, we'll explore Kristian's approach to building high-performing distribution teams. Please join me in welcoming Kristian Cook. Kristian, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's lovely to be here. Thank you very much for welcoming me.
So why don't we jump in? I'd love for you to tell us about your career journey in the asset management industry and how you got to where you are today.
Fantastic. Well, I'll try and keep it short and sweet. So I started off at university in Cambridge University, studying economics. Then I moved to JP Morgan, doing the real estate acquisitions desk as an analyst for a number of years, which was pretty hard. But great experience and exposure. I moved then down to the capital raising or fund mutual sales floor, where I was looking after a region. I then moved to Franklin Templeton as a London salesman. And finally, 9 years ago now, I moved to Liontrust Asset Management, which is a listed company here in the UK, as looking after London in terms of that fundraising. And today, in the last 9 years, I've progressed up through the ranks, so to speak, as where I was initially just a foot soldier raising money, to then leading London and then leading the UK business. And now I'm leading the global distribution or global sales team, and a partner and on the Manco at Liontrust Asset Management, which I'm very proud of.
Okay. If you could give yourself one piece of advice at the start of your career, what would it be?
Be brutally honest with yourself. And I can elaborate on that slightly. I think when I say be brutally honest with yourself, there's two elements of it. My father, who was quite instrumental growing up to me, was always, the world's a competitive space. Find out what you're good at and double down on what you're good at. So the only way to do that is be honest with yourself, what I'm really good at and passionate about. And then the second bit, which has always resonated with me from my sporting background, was work hard when no one's watching. And that's all a part of, if you see links between this, being brutally honest with yourself, and you can look yourself in the mirror and know you've worked exceptionally hard, and you don't need everyone looking to watch you the whole time.
That's great advice. So what leadership approach have you used to engage your employees?
I think the word clues in the word in the question, lead and not manage, and I really mean that. I think there's two different schools of thought and two different practices and approaches you can take. You can either lead or you can manage. And I see a clear distinction between the two. Is I very much see myself as a leader. I lead from the front through my actions and my work ethic, and hopefully people follow me. And that leads to, as a minimum, a level of respect for my work ethic, and I expect the same of my team and colleagues. So my approach, I take, again, lead by example, and there's a number of military examples where the officers would go into battle first, and I very much would expect my colleagues and team members to say I'm very much a leader rather than a manager. And I've experienced both in my career of having managers, some good, some poor, but leaders as well. And I think for me, I've always looked up to leaders, and I call a leader someone you want to follow. And a manager is someone you listen to, whereas a leader is someone you listen to and follow. And the approach I've taken, again, is just setting standards through my examples in terms of my work ethic, and not just words, actions over words. I'm sure you've heard that a number of times, but it's definitely something I live by.
So that's the differentiator for you between a manager and a leader, is somebody that is taking the actions to support their vision, not just sort of telling the troops what to do.
Yeah, I think for me, it comes from my own experience. I'm an avid reader, always have been. I'm from a sporting team background, and in the sporting world, it's very different. The leadership, you are a leader, you're a captain of the team. You're not managing the team, you're leading the team. And I think when you're going into day-to-day hard work with people, there's actions or there's words, there's motivators, or there's just people that lead from the front. And I think my experience in the professional world, different to sporting world, is I've had managers, and the best managers that I've had are leaders first and foremost. And what do I mean by that? For me, it's when I straight away look up to them through their work ethic and their standards, and therefore I respect them. Once I respect another human, I'll be willing to learn quicker from that person and be managed as a result. So therefore, for me, without a doubt, I see my responsibility is managing my team and getting the most out of my team. But the quickest way to do that is earn their respect first and foremost as a leader, and that's through your actions and work ethic. So I'm not saying you don't need to manage. Without a doubt, you need to manage your team and harvest and evolve the talent pool you have, and get people doubling down on what they're best at and empowering those people. But I think I very much, first and foremost, see myself as a leader, earn the right as a leader through my actions. That will enable me and empower me to then manage my team because I have their respect.
And what are some of the ways you've built trust or empowered your team to do what you're hoping they will do?
I I see myself, again, coming back to me, be brutally honest with myself. I am brutally honest with myself, and what you see is what you get. We've had a couple of conversations, and I think I'm a pretty passionate individual. I'm a very authentic individual. What you see is what you get. And I think that goes a long way in building trust with any human. Is there's no wall, and I'm authentic with my words and my actions again, which people see. And day one, when I took over as a leadership role at Liontrust, I said to my team the three pillars I expected from them. We were going through, we'd had exceptional success, and then we had a period of harder times, it's fair to say. And I just said to the whole team, which inevitably when anyone gets a new leader of the team, they start worrying. I said, I need three things from you. First and foremost, honesty. So trust. You can only get trust if you get honest information. And I was as honest as I could be with the team and the transformation we were going through. And I asked the same of them. And I actually forced it uncomfortably to them. So in a group environment, I'd force people to speak up. And the first people I'd force to speak up or get the view of, is the quieter people. And get everyone, so it's normal to speak up and encourage them to speak up. So building that trust started there with just breeding a honest environment, and an environment where honesty, because I believe honesty gives me the appropriate information to make good decisions on behalf of the team and the business. Without honest information, I can't make good decisions. And it's crucial for me. And that therefore, the way I got people to speak up is not just force them to speak up, as I spoke up myself first, very honestly about how I felt, stepping up into a leadership role, how I felt about Liontrust as a firm, where we were at that moment and where I believe we could go. And there was some words of, it's been very hard. It's going to be hard, but get excited by it because what's on the other side could be really fruitful. So I think building trust within the team, it started with me asking them to be honest. And then again, leading through my actions by me being honest about the situation where we are, as honest as we can be being a PLC. And then continuing that honesty at every sales meeting. First session we have on a monthly basis is always, what do you need more of? What's going wrong? And that forces people to speak up in front of the group and just say, this isn't working, I'm struggling here, I need this help. And that breeds a centre of honesty rather than people talking behind in closed doors or over the phone in private conversations. So building the trust is asking people to trust the process, bring honesty to the process, and then live by honesty and continue to bring it.
So one of the things you shared with me was how you have people on your team present product to the team, which is, is really challenging, and you have to trust your teammates that they'll be supportive as you do that. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that has gone?
Yeah, that was quite uncomfortable initially. I'll elaborate a bit more about what that is. So, I believe that any salesperson in any field, there's three pillars that make a good salesperson and a good sales team, and that can be anything, and it will lead to good outcomes. And there's three pillars to that, as I say. First and foremost, it's activity. You've got to be highly active with your clients or prospective clients. Secondly, is coverage, seeing the right clients at the right firms on a regular basis rather than just doing activity for the sake of it. So activity, coverage, and finally product knowledge. And product knowledge is understanding your product and the solution it can potentially provide to any client, or in our case, investor. So you make a good point there. Is I would it was quite uncomfortable initially as forced what we called an off the cuff session, and it was a team of 40 all in a big boardroom. And the off the cuff session would be, I'd pick a name of the 40 out of a hat. I'd pick one of our key products or funds or strategies out of a hat, and that individual would have to stand up and do an elevator presentation to that room, their peers, on that product, which is initially people saw it as an opportunity to fail, and it was quite a scary environment. But if you know your product and you're passionate about it, which I encourage people to be, it's an opportunity to thrive. And it's funny how it's evolved in the last 2 years. Really, is the day one, it was everyone was praying their name didn't get pulled out of a hat, and praying a certain product only got pulled out of a hat if it was them. Whereas now, people are, not everyone, but the bulk of the team, really keen to showcase their skill set now, and they really want to do it. So I think that product knowledge piece was quite an uncomfortable piece, because some people were hiding, being brutally honest, and maybe didn't know their product as well as they should. But what it's done is force people to make sure they're really slick, they practice good habits and get out of bad habits. They learn from each other and see it now as an opportunity to get better, and also teach others around them. The younger, members of the staff only learn by doing, or learn by osmosis. And you only really see salespeople quite rarely when you're the inbound and they're the outbound. So it's a great opportunity for them to develop and learn what's good, but also what's not so good.
I mean, it's a great idea. You mentioned sort of activity for activity's sake versus meeting with the right people. And as a former head of distribution, I would love to get your perspective on that, how you manage that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I manage it. I've built tools that manage it for me. And again, we all want the same outcome at Liontrust. We're a team approach. It's not individual sales targets. And my background is at JP Morgan and Franklin Templeton, which are much more American mindset when it comes to sales and are quite different culturally. I think a fantastic approach. Always have. They're kind of 20 years ahead of what the UK have always been, being brutally honest. But I think if you blend a bit of the American salesmanship alongside the UK, I think more polite, thoughtful approach, you get the ultimate makeup. And you mentioned activity. In the American firms I've worked at on those environments, it was all about activity. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't agree more. But you need to be a self-starter as a salesman to be successful, and activity is a prerequisite. The key thing as I see my job as I'm the rudder. To a certain extent, I want high energy people, and I can motivate and catalyze that energy, but I want to make sure they're going in the right direction and utilizing that energy efficiently, i.e. their activity. If they can do 15 meetings a week, let's make sure they're doing 15 meetings with 15 fantastic firms and 15 fantastic individuals at that firms. Because there's nothing worse, as you'll know, with your background, that certain numbers don't show you the full picture. So if someone's doing 15 meetings a week and someone's doing 10, and person one with 15 meetings has only actually seen what we would call 4 platinum firms and 2 platinum individuals, you're not going to see the fruit at the end of it. So what I've done in the background is what I've done is I've had a team build what we call our rudder system appropriately. And it's a coverage and activity dashboard which is shared with the whole team for the collective team target of activity per week. Have we as a team hit our activity? Are we active as a team? Secondly, at individual level, are you active as a team? But then more importantly is a coverage dashboard, which is the rudder system, which is showing salespeople that they turn up on a Monday morning, they pull up firstly, I call it their petrol gauges, who you need to see, who you haven't seen by days, whether it's red or green. So it straight away activates you as a salesman to go, I need to pick up the phone to Maureen and go see her because she runs a huge amount of assets, hasn't got any with us, or need to go see Joe Bloggs, who's had one of our strategies for 2 years, had a really bad performance profile with it. I want to give him an update. So it enables them to be better as salespeople rather than relying on their own intuition and what I would call a maverick mentality, which is pick up the phone, who do I need to speak to next? Da, da, da. It's a regimented, robust approach, which makes sure we cover as much as we can and are highly active.
Yeah, that sounds really powerful. I wish I had that.
Well, yeah. Oh, to be honest, like any good idea, you steal the first iteration. At JP Morgan, again, they had this 20 years ago when it started, and I remember I had my strategy team sit down with me and just give it to me on a weekly basis and say, these are the 10 you need to see in the next month. And it definitely leads to better results. The input leads to the output. And I think Liontrust, we've matured as a business. We've grown astronomically, and we are not just a sales business now. We're a servicing. You have to service your existing investors and then layer on top of that as well. So it's a dual approach.
Mm-hmm. What role does culture play in your growth plans, and how are you actively shaping your culture?
I'm a massive culture vulture, and I truly believe it's the heartbeat of anything. It's the epitome of what allows an environment to be successful or not, because you can install productivity through these tools, but if you haven't got, it starts with the right people first and foremost, right people, but then creating an environment which is a cohesive, competitive environment, and building the right level of balance between competing with one another and work ethic. So culture for me is everything, because without culture, you don't get productivity. One bad egg spoils everything. We all know the different analogies. And I've been in very successful environments, and I've been in very unsuccessful environments. I've been in teams where you have a fantastic team, then I've been in a team where you have fantastic individuals. And there is no question that a fantastic team is it's a team approach. And again, I'm a big reader of different successes. And Phil Jackson, which would be very, very relevant in your world, the Chicago Bulls, he is the epitome of culture, and he installed fantastic cultures everywhere he went and made the most of all the parts he had, without necessarily the best talent. He created the best team. And in the UK, again, in business terms rather than just sporting terms, the two approaches I take is you have the Steve Jobs approach, which is probably the godfather of creating talent and cultures, I would say, and cults as well. And he has this famous phrase that a small group of A team players will run rings around armies of B's and C's. Mm-hmm. And that's really resonated with me. When you create a small group of A plus individuals, any successful firm at the beginning starts with a small group of people who tend to be A plus, which is why they're successful. They grow quickly. Initially, they can continue to spend time in the recruitment phase and make sure they're all the rest of their A pluses. But eventually they stagnate because they've started to hire B's and C's. And when that stagnation comes, the A pluses don't want to be pulled back by the B's and C's, so they end up leaving. So you end up with loads of B's and C's, quota. And I truly believe that massively. And in the UK military, we're always very proud of our SAS, and the SAS is always a very small team. They do things the entire army couldn't do. So I'm a big believer in getting a small group of the right people which formulate the great team. Very long-winded answer of your question of culture, but I think there's so many different guises of culture, but it really is at the center. And a lot of the time it's not tangible, but it's visible. And the only way I can get a true feel of it is engagement surveys of our team and the business. And there's been a huge increase in the engagement survey of our department, which I'm very proud of and probably most proud of. And that's despite it being a slightly harder time at the moment, is the truth, for asset management and active management. So if I can continue that and keep my finger on the pulse there and keep people motivated, keep it positive, keep it competitive, then we're in a good place to create good outcomes.
I mean, I do agree. I think to my kids' sports, and they would rather be on a winning team than play the whole game. So they're willing to give up some to be on a winning team.
That's quite rare though, because it's generationally it's quite different, isn't it? I find with the younger to the older, and in finance in particular, where people in sales, any salesman on the whole wants to make money, right? And they don't want to be pulled back by the rest of the team. But the truth is, the process we have in place and the remuneration structure we have in place is team first, and it's all about culture. And I think one thing I would add is to culture is I've been a big believer in bringing and creating a new culture to the team, and it takes time. Is one of the biggest learning. It really does take time, and getting people to open up outside of work has been a pivotal part of creating a culture where you're in it together for the long run and you're in it with the right people and learning about each other outside of work, inside of work, what makes people tick. So you see the positive in your colleagues always before you see the negative first. And everyone is very different.
So that kind of leads to my next question. You talked about sort of having a small group of A+ players, but you naturally would have some up and comers. And so how are you thinking about the next generation that may come in as a B player because they don't have the experience, but A player?
I call it the academy, the kind of younger or less experienced generation coming through. And that's what the beauty of the off-the-cuff sessions is. It's an opportunity for them to showcase and raise the bar to those who are more experienced. I challenge them to challenge the group and raise the bar and prove to me they deserve a shot. And this is a sporting analogy versus, again, I keep using it, but if you're in the second team, you're young and less experienced, you haven't experienced with the first team or first 11 in football, soccer, or even a call. If I give you a chance, prove to me and take it with the two hands. And I'm quite young in my career to be doing the role I'm doing, and I'm very grateful to those that have given me the backing to do it. But once you get an opportunity, just take it. And I'm all about, I never think how old. I never ask the question, how old are you? People often ask me, how old are you? And I'll say, old enough. And I expect my juniors or academy to say that, I'm old enough. Yeah. But then prove it to me. So I think long story short is how I spend more time with them probably than I do my senior, because I want them to progress quicker, because that enforces their superiors or their outbound salespeople to raise the bar. Because if they're not raising the bar, guess what? They'll be displaced by someone coming through who's offering more energy and talent.
Yeah. Well, that leads to my last question. What legacy do you want to leave as a leader in this industry?
That I'm a leader, first and foremost. And I know that sounds, I'm a leader that's installed true belief in people around them and empowered them to reach heights they didn't even think were possible about themselves with a group of people around them, which they've really enjoyed. That's quite hard to answer quickly, but the legacy is just that I'm a leader and then about making others better than they ever thought they could possibly be.
Yeah. I mean, everything we discussed today, has been a lot about bringing the younger generation up and creating future leaders. So that's a great legacy.
Yeah, no, hopefully I managed to achieve it. It takes a lot of time and I absolutely love it. It's a real privilege to work with a small team of A+ people, which I'm really proud of, and very much never dread coming to work. I was off on holiday, as you'll know, on annual leave, just come back, and I've been really excited to see everyone, and it's lovely to be back in and getting going again.
Excellent. Well, Kristian, thank you so much for being here today. I really enjoyed our conversation.
No, I've absolutely loved it. It's been fantastic, and really appreciated all your questions, and would look forward to continuing to speak.